I go to the elementary school close to my house. One day, my friend and I were at recess, so we were at the edge of the playground. On the other side of the fence was a parking lot that was usually empty. That's why it was easy to notice when a small, dirty silver car drove in and parked right on the other side of the fence. Nobody got out and nobody tried to talk to us, but it was still really weird. There was a man inside, staring dead ahead, but he was bald, skinny, wrinkly, and as far as we knew, a complete stranger. Cutting our conversation short, we walked away, but we didn't tell anyone about it. We weren't sure if it was serious or not, and when we looked back at the end of recess, the car was gone. Later that day, after the dismissal bell finally rang, my friend and I met up again and started walking home. My house was only about a 10-minute bike ride away, and hers was a little bit farther, by 3 or 4 minutes. We hadn't even thought about the dirty silver car for hours, but then it showed up again. It appeared behind us out of nowhere. Soon, it was right on our tail, going the same exact speed as us. After what felt like forever, we finally got close to my house. I asked my friend if she wanted to stay at my house until her parents could pick us up, and she agreed in a heartbeat. Without another word, we made a mad dash for my garage. We made it, at least for now. As the garage door droned slowly downward, I saw that creepy man's car parked right in front of our driveway. The sun was a bit lowered now, shining perfectly onto his face. His mouth was in the shape of a wide open smile. His eyes were crossed, too. When the garage door closed on him, I ran around to the closest window in time to see him driving off. As scary as it was, my friend and I felt the tiniest bit bad. It seemed kind of like he maybe wasn't all there, like he had a mental problem. A few hours later, my friend was picked up by her parents. It would have been a really good idea to tell them about the man following us right then, but we figured we shouldn't worry our parents. The next morning, my friend came by my house to pick up her bike and ride the rest of the way to school with me. She said she hasn't seen the man on her way, so it seemed like everything would be all right. A few minutes went by where nothing happened. But then, before we knew it, he appeared out of thin air all over again, this time right next to us. He swerved off the road and drove onto the sidewalk. He stopped in front of us so fast that we both nearly plowed our bikes into the side of his car. Panicking, we crashed into the grass. We scrambled to our feet, trying to get back on our bikes and ride off before anything else happened. But then we saw the man getting out of his car, and the sheer sight of it made us freeze in our tracks. He was wearing nothing but a giant diaper. He stood with it, sagging between his legs as he stared at us, a pacifier pulsating in his mouth. Even as he sucked on it, he finally spoke, after haunting us for so long. "Goo goo gaga!
Oh my god!
Can one of you's mommies change my diaper?
No! No!
I made a messy! Change me!"
Get away from us!
"No. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I choose you!" He ran at us. We tried to get away, but he grabbed me and lifted me over his shoulder. I screamed for help as loud as I could, but nobody was around but my friend. She came running back for me as the man started taking me back to his car. No matter how hard I hit him, punched him, or kicked him, he wouldn't let me go. I clawed and scratched at him with my nails, even bit him, but nothing made a difference. Finally, my friend reached out her hands and I grabbed them. Then we both pulled with everything we had. I slipped off the man's shoulder. Then my friend helped me to my feet and we ran for our lives. By then, the man had crawled back into his car and driven off, but he had no idea about this. We screamed bloody murder the whole way until we got help from the school. The police were called and they asked us a million questions. We told them everything, not hiding a single detail anymore. Soon, the man was arrested. I could have never imagined someone doing anything like what he did. But surprisingly, this was like a regular Tuesday for him. He had a long history of doing unbelievable things, like wearing diapers, exposing himself in public, including a lot of other stuff that everyone refuses to tell us about, even though we already went through all this. I swear to God, I never want to see another human being in a diaper, whether they're a baby or not. This school story was inspired by a man who has had a history of arrests dating back to 1999 of voyeurism for watching younger people and exposing himself while wearing a diaper. Thursday, he was accused of asking 2 girls to change his diaper in a Tyler neighborhood. The suspect was Wesley Stephen Worrell, 46. In the latest incident, 2 girls were riding bikes and scooters through their neighborhood when they noticed a silver vehicle begin to follow them, stopping when they stopped. Later, on their way home, they noticed Worrell sitting in the vehicle in the parking lot of Andy Woods Elementary School. Worrell then got out, only wearing a diaper, and shouted, "Goo goo gaga, I need a diaper change." Frightened, the girls quickly rode away, approaching another family's home where a man and his sons were working in the garage. The man said the girls rode up so fast they skinned their knees, claiming a scary man was chasing them. The son went searching for the vehicle they described, while a woman in the home attempted to calm the girls, who were visibly shaking and truly petrified. Investigators were later able to identify Worrell as the suspect and arrested him at his place of work.
My wife and I retired to the countryside on a little lake in the woods. We don't have many neighbors. The closest folks are a middle-aged lady and her adult son living together in a big empty house a ways down the road. Penny and Chad sometimes go fishing on the lake, but otherwise, we don't see them. The last time I saw them, something in that boy was twisted to all hell. A couple days before Mother's Day, I was fishing off my dock, trying to think of what to do to make my wife feel special. At some point, I looked to my right and saw Chad coming down the way. I waved at him. He waved back. He didn't have a pole or anything on him, so I didn't know what he was getting up to, but I didn't ask. As he passed in front of my house, he stopped by the edge of the dock. He didn't get close enough to warrant me turning around to face him, so I just talked with my back turned to him.
"Hey Jim, catch anything?" "Just bait so far." Got any plans for Mother's Day?" "Well, figured I'll spoil my old lady somehow. Still brainstorming, you see. How about yourself?" "Oh, my mom's gonna spoil, all right." That's a strange way to put it, but good luck to you, Chad." "Thanks, old-timer, but I'm not the one who needs it."
That was the last thing he said to me. He kept going on his way. That weekend, for Mother's Day, I cooked a fancy dinner for my wife. We shared some cocktails on the dock at sunset, then went inside to watch one of her favorite movies before bed. I slept well, but at my old age, no matter how good I sleep, I have to get up to use the bathroom at least 2 or 3 times a night. As I started heading back to bed, I got sidetracked. I heard some commotion outside. I decided to do my own diligence and check just to be sure. When I got to the living room and peeked through the blinds, it was no animal out there, but a person, a man. My first thought was that I'd caught a robber right before he tried breaking in, though that idea quickly vanished when I recognized him. It was Chad. He was standing almost perfectly still, in the same spot I'd spoken to him just days ago. I stared, wondering what the hell he could be up to. Sensing my gaze, he broke his catatonic state and looked right back through the window. He saw me. I dropped the curtain and backed away. A minute later, I braved another peek through the same spot. Chad's face was right on the other side of the glass. I shouted at the top of my lungs, fell back and landed on my ass. It hurt like hell, but I instantly tried to get back to my feet. I was expecting Chad to come breaking in at any second. Then I heard it. He was pounding on the door. I had to get up, had to defend my home, but just as quickly, I came to my senses. I felt my wife's hand on my shoulder, and her voice telling me in the nicest way to cool my shit and tell her what was happening. The pounding in my heart wasn't from Chad. It was from her barreling down the hallway at top speed to get to me, thinking I could be hurt. For an old lady, she's still fast. I felt much better remembering she was around and not just a damsel in distress, but a hard bitch too. I told her Chad was out there, acting like a literal lunatic. She looked outside, but by then, he was long gone. I had to endure some jokes about me becoming senile and making things up, but in a few days' time, my sighting would be confirmed. Although, I'm not exactly thrilled about being right. On Tuesday morning, the news was all about one thing. The body of a woman had been found in a burnt-out car crashed on a riverbank, just a couple of miles from my house. The remains belonged to Penny, our closest neighbor. Immediately, I thought of her son, Chad, what he had said to me on the dock that Friday, how he showed up at our house on Sunday night, obviously in an altered state of mind. That day, I went down to the station to tell the police what I saw, but I could tell by how serious they took my statement that Chad was already a prime suspect. I still didn't think what I gave them would be much help, but when the rest of the details of the case came out, I'm glad I did my part in taking that bastard down. Chad had in fact murdered his own mother, on Mother's Day no less. He kept her body in the freezer for 24 hours. Once she froze solid, he sawed her into pieces, then loaded them up in his car and drove out to the river, where he set the car on fire with his mother still inside. Chad was convicted on all counts and sentenced to live the rest of his life in prison. His motive is still a mystery to everyone in town. When I close my eyes though, I see the answer. I remember the look in his eyes the last time I saw him, and I know he did it because he's just plain, pure evil. A mother who was said to have loved her son unconditionally was taken out by him in a gruesome Mother's Day slaying. Her remains were then dismembered by him and then set on fire as he desperately tried to cover his tracks. Police in Hartford, Alabama, received a call reporting a burnt-out vehicle was sitting along the river just 2 days after Mother's Day in 2019. When police got there, the car was almost destroyed, and yet they uncovered human remains inside of it. Those remains belonged to 56-year-old Penny Wilson Newton. The suspect was her 36-year-old son named Chad Brogdon. On the same day the call was made, Brogdon was seen coming out of the woodland area close to an elderly couple's home. This was the spot in which he had claimed to have been assaulted and left without his truck. The following day, police identified her son as a person of interest when a deputy spotted burns on his body, paired with the smell of smoke on him, and boots with prints that matched those on the crime scene. When officers searched his home, they found further evidence and traces of blood found in his freezers. It's believed that Brogdon took out his mother on Mother's Day before driving up to 20 miles away and dumping the vehicle with her remains inside, and then setting it on fire in an attempt to destroy the evidence. He was later charged accordingly.
Follow lockdown procedures. Go into the nearest room or building, lock the door, and turn off all lights. Wait for the all clear from school officials or local authorities. Lockdown. Lockdown.
Growing up in a tiny community like mine, you hear about all this crazy stuff on the news, these massacres and tragedies day after day, but you think that'll never happen here. A day came that not one of us will ever forget. I was in school watching the minutes go by, waiting until I could finally go home. I excused myself from class to go to the bathroom, but I didn't really have to go. I just wanted to look at my phone for a few minutes without the risk of it getting confiscated. Luckily, the girls' room was completely empty. I took the stall, second from the end. While scrolling through Snapchat, I tapped through a bunch of people's stories, but one person had quite a few more posts than anybody else. They were absent that day, and whenever they stayed home from school, which was quite often, they always did a bunch of schizo posting. Growing up, their name was Jessie, until they came out as transgender and started going by the name Jennifer. I changed their name on Snapchat, but otherwise, I didn't really care. I wasn't friends with them, just acquaintances because everybody knew everybody. What matters is, completely regardless of their gender, Jennifer was a nutcase. They were crazy before transitioning, and they were just as unpopular afterwards. After being on my phone for a few minutes, I decided to finish up before my teacher got suspicious. Just as I was starting to finally piss, someone walked into the bathroom. I couldn't tell if they were a teacher or a student. They were being oddly quiet. It sounded like they went into a stall, but I didn't hear it close or anything like that. Of course, I had no reason to be overly cautious, so I wrapped up and exited the stall. Right as I walked out of it, a loud sound started reverberating through the bathroom. Someone had started pissing. Then I took another couple steps and passed by a stall I thought was empty, but even though the door was open, it was absolutely occupied. I saw none other than Jennifer pissing while standing up in full view. It took everything I had to not stop and stare in shock. I forced myself to continue to the sink and wash my hands. Jennifer had enough time to finish her business at the toilet and started washing her hands in the sink next to mine. That's when I saw the blood, a shocking amount of it, all over her. My hands froze under the tap. It didn't take long for Jennifer to catch me staring either. She then looked directly in my eye, a sickening smirk on her face. I couldn't tell what was going through her head. When Jennifer turned off the faucet, she also reached over to shut off my sink as well. This action brought her close to my face, close enough for me to smell the pungent sweat in her pits. That, and the distinct metallic stench of blood. It wasn't paint, and she hadn't gotten all of it off yet. When she whispered to me, I knew there was no right answer. Every word was sealing my fate.
What are you staring at, princess?
Nothing. I don't have a problem with you being in here, I swear.
Really? Don't tell me you're not used to the sight of blood.
It's not that. I'm not used to people using the bathroom with the door open. That's all.
Did I forget to close it? Man, my bad. I was just practicing my aim. How would you like to help me with target practice?
A chill ran through my whole body. Regardless of what she meant, I wasn't sticking around to find out. I immediately turned around and ran. I sprinted down the hallway, not looking back until I was at the stairwell. My plan was to just make sure that she didn't follow me back to my class, maybe double back across the second floor. But then I saw her, not running, but just then exiting the bathroom. She looked at me across the distance with a look on her face I'll never forget. Then she crossed the hall and entered the classroom I came from. A moment later, the shots started. I was no hero. Any chance I might have had to warn people was long gone, and doing so might have gotten me killed anyway. I saw my exit, and I took it. By the time the massacre was over, she had killed 8 people. The first 2 were at her house. The blood I saw her washing from her hands belonged to them. Then, she came to school and killed 6 more before taking the easy way out. Like a coward, she made sure she would never stand trial, never face justice for what she did, if she even had any. All we know is that our town will never be the same, and I can't stop thinking about how close I came to being one of her victims. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a teenage suspect involved in a mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge. Police say the 18-year-old suspect was Jesse Van Rootseller, who was found dead on the scene, took out 8 people, and then doing the unthinkable to themselves. The suspect had been the subject of a number of police visits in recent years because of mental health issues and used to have a firearms license. It is unclear who owned the firearms used in the attack or what the motive was. 5 students and a teacher were taken out, and at least 25 others were injured at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. 2 others, the suspect's mother and stepbrother, were found dead at a nearby home when the attack began. Van Rootseller was born a biological male, but identified as a female. A 2021 Facebook post from the suspect's mother, Jennifer Strang, described how the teenager was infatuated with firearms. When my son began attending public school, I was finally able to return to work full-time thanks to him taking the school bus. Of course, I expected starting school to be a big adjustment for him. He was more upset about going to school than ever. At first, I worried that the other kids were bullying him. I asked him if that was the case, but he said no. For a while there, I could tell he was genuinely scared. I decided to go to a few parent-teacher conferences to suss out if it was his teacher or the principal that were responsible. His teacher and everyone else I met at the school turned out to be the nicest people I could have asked for. They were not the problem. Sadly, as this went on for weeks and weeks, my son became a bit of a problem himself. Initially, I got annoyed. I even lashed out at him for being a brat. Turns out, the doctor could not give a conclusive diagnosis. She suggested the problems with him still had a source, something definitive and external, not internal. And if that source was something he refused to talk about, I would need to figure it out myself. But one night, my son did something different. He came into my room at 5 in the morning. He must not have slept at all. I was just waking up, minutes before my alarm. He stood in my doorway and stared at me for a while before coming up to the bed. Mommy. Mom.
Why are you out of bed?
Can you take me to school today?
You know I can't, baby. I have to go to work.
Please?
No, just go back to sleep for now.
It's your fault then.
What?
The last thing he said caught me off guard. He had already walked out of the room before it registered. I got up and checked on him right after. He was lying in bed, staring straight up at the ceiling. He refused to talk to me. I wanted to give in and drive him to school, but I didn't want to make a habit of it. Instead, I had a different idea. I finally had some insight as to what was causing his problems, or at least where and when it was happening. The school bus. I remembered it being a scary place as a little kid, but I had to think of a way to get a view inside without anyone knowing. Within a few days, I had everything assembled. I gave my son an early birthday present, a brand new lunchbox. I made sure he saw that it was packed full of sweets. That way he wouldn't even notice the slightly oversized name tag clipped on the handle. It was a hidden camera. Whatever was going on, it would show me. The next day, I sent him off to school, having to force him to get on the bus as always, hopefully for the last time. At the end of the day, I took the camera and plugged it in to review the footage. Bye! Have a good afternoon! Do your homework! Come back soon! Finally, that's the last of them. Now it's just you and me. This is my favorite part of the day. Isn't it yours? Still tight-lipped, huh? Nothing wrong with that. You look really handsome today. Mind if I take a picture? I said smile! That's better. That'll be the money shot soon. But I guess I have to take you home for now. Hey, you know what? It's Friday. You've been at school all week. I've been working all week. Why don't we get more comfortable? Come on up here and sit on your bus driver's lap. I don't wanna... Oh, don't be a tease. It's just for a few minutes. Someday, you'll learn it's easier when you just do what you're told. The whole time, it was the bus driver. I never thought my son being the first kid on the bus in the mornings and the last one off at the end of the day would ever be a problem, would ever put him through something so horrible. I wanted to throw up. I knew that footage was only scratching the surface of all the things that detestable bus driver was doing to my son. I reported him to the school and had him arrested immediately, which in turn revealed the extent of his sickness. On the internet, he was a downright prolific consumer and trader of explicit materials to countless other offenders like him. Much of that material was gathered right from the school bus he drove every single day. I wish I had found out about this and put a stop to it from the very beginning. I dread to find out how much my son suffered. A Caldwell school bus driver accused of possessing and distributing underage content is now facing 10 felony counts. Jeremy Wakely, 42, appeared in court Wednesday morning. Each count carries a potential sentence of up to 30 years in prison if Wakely is convicted. Wakely was first arrested in January after investigators traced the download of the distributing suspected material to an internet address at a home on East Linden Street in Caldwell. Investigators later executed a search warrant at the home, where Wakely allegedly admitted to using the messaging app Telegram to exchange explicit images and videos online, and acknowledged he knew the activity was illegal. During the investigation, authorities say they recovered roughly 2,500 files from Wakely's cell phone and from a USB drive connected to a laptop found in a bedroom he said belonged to him. Authorities have previously said there is no evidence of local victims connected to the case at this time.
To me, Mother's Day is the most unbearable, terrifying day of the year. For years, my mother has been on a downward spiral. Dad disappeared at the first onset of her mental decline, leaving me to deal with it entirely on my own. She's got a delightful combination of schizophrenia, manic depressive disorder, and now, early onset dementia, which is the only inheritance I'll ever get from her. On top of that, she's decided that I'm responsible for everything wrong in her life. That means taking care of the house, cooking for her, cleaning up after her, making sure she takes her mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, and all her other medications. And then on Mother's Day, I go from being her maid, nurse, and personal chef to her slave and personal whipping boy. I keep telling myself that as soon as I turn 18, I'll move out and put her in some kind of facility. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure I'll make it that long anymore. Whenever she talks to me, instead of saying, "I wish I never had you," or "You ruined me," she just says, "I wish you were dead." It's not just an occasional thing either. It's every time I enter the room. Anytime I ask her a question, that's the answer. She mutters it under her breath like a mantra. I even hear her whispering it in her sleep. "I hope you die." It gives me chills every damn time, but there's nothing I can do. It's not a direct threat, and nobody will believe me when I say she really means it. Last night, my worst fear became reality. I had just put my mother to bed, made her take one of her tranquilizers, and listened to all the terrible things she thought about me. I sat in the room to make sure the muscle relaxer took effect, and when her breathing slowed, I headed out to the living room to try and unwind. I didn't make it 10 steps out of the room before she jumped on my back. She came out of nowhere, completely silent until she had her hands around my throat, trying to strangle me to death. I went down to my knees, prying at her arms to get a fraction of breath. I thought I was going to die, but then the adrenaline kicked in and I overpowered her, slipping under her arms and turning around to pin her down. I forced her onto the ground, using every ounce of strength I had to keep her from worming her way out. I was never a fighter, and going against an insane person felt impossible. Luckily, there was another bottle of muscle relaxers on the countertop, just within reach. I just kept grabbing pills and shoving them into her mouth, then holding her jaw closed. But eventually, the massive dose finally took effect. Once she went limp, I dragged her back to bed. Afterwards, while I was trying to calm down, I suddenly realized Mother's Day was coming up. She always got worse around Mother's Day. She would probably try to use a weapon. I went around the house, locating and hiding all the knives, forks, and anything else that could be used to hurt me. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I tried to go about the next day like normal, but in the evening, I started to panic. I decided to sleep in my closet and set up a spare blanket and pillow under the covers of my bed as a decoy in case my mother attacked me in the night. That might have been the best decision of my life. At midnight, I heard my doorbell rattling. She was picking the lock with a bobby pin like she did 1,000 times. It didn't take her long to gain entry. I watched through the slats in the closet door as she crept up to my bed in the darkness. She was too insane to realize it was all just fluff. She really thought it was me. Right before my eyes, my mother took out a knife she had hidden in her nightgown, then plunged it right into the heart of my bed. She started stabbing and ripping the covers to shreds, screaming in fury. In the middle of her rampage, I leapt from the closet and tackled my mother.
Mom, let go! Drop the knife!
Get off me, you parasite! Why won't you just die?
Mom!
She left me with no choice. I pinned my knee against her elbow, then pulled it back with all my might, ripping it right out of the socket. Finally, the line had been crossed. My actions incapacitated her, though her broken mind allowed her to use 100% of her strength. I can still feel the energy of that snap vibrating through my hands. Once I came to terms with what I did, I tied her up again, then called the police and sat on her until they arrived. It's funny, now that she's locked up in the psych ward, she's telling everyone all about the different ways she tried to kill me. She apparently tried to hire a hitman, but that never worked out. I guess that's not funny to anyone but me. After all the shit I've been through, I don't expect I'll grow up to be a normal person. This Mother's Day story was inspired by an incident regarding a mother who tried to hire a hitman from a fake website to take out her son. Jasmine Paez, 20, was arrested in July 2023 at the age of 18 after the owner of rentahitman.com, a parody website masquerading as a hitman for hire service, contacted police claiming that Paez submitted a request to have her son taken out. The owner of the site, Robert Ines, told the outlet that although he received plenty of requests of varying legitimacy, Paez's request was particularly disturbing because of the age of the victim and the fact that she sent images of Paez's son, and the fact that she sent images of the boy and his exact location. During Paez's hearing, her attorney indicated that Paez's child may have been a product of incest. Paez reportedly started a relationship with another teenager sometime after having the child. but the teenager broke up with her after learning she was a mother. Paez's attorney posed that this breakup may have led to her contacting the Rent a Hitman website. She pled guilty as part of a plea deal that allowed her to avoid over a decade in prison.
Lockdown, lockdown. This is an emergency alert. Please follow lockdown procedures. Go into the nearest room or building.
As a school resource officer, I'm tasked with maintaining order in an active community of nearly 1,000 students. Recently, a case of bullying has become of particular interest. For one reason or another, got a target painted on his back. He's been picked on and humiliated by dozens of different students through various means and over an extended period of time. He's never fought back. They take his kindness for weakness and abuse it. Unfortunately, almost everything I've tried to do to remedy the situation before it went critical ended up in a terrible feedback loop. All the offending students I punished simply fed into an intensified hatred of Ivan. With little other option, I've resorted to just protecting Ivan the best I can. One day, Ivan just snapped. It was quiet that day. It must have been around 1 o'clock. Suddenly, my radio crackled, and a panicked voice shattered the quiet.
Barnes, hurry! Get to building!
The lockdown alarm rang. I tried to turn up my radio and asked him to repeat, but it was too late. The sounds of panic, fleeing, and screaming were pouring in from the hall, and whoever that teacher was, their hands were way too full to get back to me. I couldn't hear the location, but the voice sounded familiar. I decided to make my way to that teacher's classroom on the other side of campus. As I stepped out of the break room, I entered the hallway in the last moments of the scramble for cover. Everyone was following the drills, but under the ensuing radio silence, I couldn't get any more information. Quickly, I hustled across the school, my weapon already drawn. Moment by moment, I cleared section after section. I knew reinforcements would be on their way, but they would be waiting on my call to enter the building. There was a chance that going in too brashly would lead to more panic and further casualties. It was up to me, but it was so damn quiet. My ears were ringing, my heart pounding in my head. It had been years since I felt the pressure of this on. But why? For all I knew, this was a false alarm. But something in my gut said otherwise, ripping me right out of my head. I rounded a corner and saw it. There was a student at the far end of the hall. They had a knife in their hand. They were covered in blood, and they were facing me, alone, as if they heard me coming. Instantly, my arms rose up to point my gun downrange at the target. My finger touched the trigger, but then I stopped. I lowered my gun. It was Ivan. The look on his face was haunting. The only person he had hurt so far was himself. His forearms were gashed right down the middle. I started moving forward. This alarmed Ivan, prompting him to raise the knife at me and start spewing his threats.
Stay away from me! I'll kill you too!
Take it easy, Ivan. It's just me. We're friends, remember? I'm not gonna hurt you.
Don't call me that! You're not my friend! You don't give a shit about me!
Come on, Ivan. You know that's not true. I've always looked out for you. I'm sorry about whatever happened.
Then prove it! Drop your gun! Do it now!
All right, I'm dropping my gun. After closing in about 20 feet, I stopped momentarily to take a knee and place my gun on the ground. Then I kept going. I could see from this distance that Ivan was shaking. You see, I did it. Now it's your turn. Put down the knife, Ivan.
Now!
We can work this out, Ivan, but only if we're both unarmed, okay?
You're lying! You just want to put me in prison!
You won't go to jail, not unless you hurt someone. We can take you to some place to get help.
I don't want their help!
In a split second, one of my worst fears became reality. Ivan put the blade to his throat. With nobody else around to threaten, he thought this was his only leverage, but I still took a chance. I was so close. As soon as I saw him hesitate, I pushed forward.
Stay back! I'll do it! This is on you!
I know you don't want to do that, Ivan. Just give me the knife.
Stay away! Ivan, please!
Out of nowhere, the knife came back toward me. Time froze, and the next moment I remember, I had Ivan's wrist in my hand, nearly crushing it, holding back the knife just inches from my neck. Had he been any stronger, had I been any slower, a very different sight might have been my last. However, in that moment, Ivan knew he had no other path forward but to comply. With my free hand, I wrenched the knife from his grasp. He offered no resistance to it. His body went limp, barely standing. I tossed the knife behind my back and put my arm around under his shoulders to support him before he fell. The blood loss, the adrenaline, the extreme emotions, all of it took a toll on him. With Ivan finally restrained, I arrested him under the Baker Act, giving him a bit of grace from criminal charges. He's been out of school for a while now, recovering in a mental health facility I won't disclose. I hope he's doing better now, because I'll never forget the moment he almost threw his life away. Rockville High School was briefly locked down and a classroom was evacuated, as a school resource officer convinced a student to turn over the small pocket knife he had. School staff alerted the school resource officer at 1:35 p.m., and staff members were able to quickly evacuate the other students from the classroom. According to police, the student had some cuts on his arms, and the school resource officer convinced him to turn over the knife peacefully after about 30 minutes. The school lockdown lasted for around 10 minutes. An ambulance brought the student to a local hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. Police are investigating, and no charges have been filed at this time. Bud is my life. Without it, I'm nothing. Unlike all the losers who spend every day of their lives slaving away for the man, I did the smart thing. I stayed at home and took over the basement. What good is work anyway? My mom cooks, cleans, pays the mortgage, and still has plenty left over to give me an allowance. Honestly, I think I'm living the dream. Unfortunately, there is one truly pressing issue in my life: my tolerance. I don't believe in tolerance breaks, and since I've been smoking every day for almost 10 years now, my tolerance is crazy high. Every year to celebrate 420, I try to break through that ceiling. I save up as much money as I can, then do a total blowout. I buy as much flour, extract, and/or edibles as I can. Then I do it all in the span of one night to get as blazed as humanly possible. Sadly, that barely even works anymore. So this year, I made sure my plug didn't hold nothing out on me. I wanted the strongest shit he had no matter the price, and I wasn't going to accept anything less. He was reluctant at first, but after a lot of pressure, he finally gave in and promised he'd give me the strongest stuff he'd ever stocked. As usual, I set up the deal for the night before 420. That way I could get home and start the celebration at the stroke of midnight. I snuck out of the house after my mom went to bed, then walked to the local park. I sat down on the same bench as always. Then a bit later, the plug sat down next to me. "What's up, bro? You good?" "Yeah, I'm good, bro. You got the stuff?" "You know I got it, bro. Just keep it down." "Come on, man. Why so serious?" "This shit is next level, man. I'm telling you. You gotta keep it on the DL, you feel?" "Yeah, I feel. So what's it called?" "The strain, bro. What's the name?" "It's, MILF Nectar. It'll change your life, bro. Trust." "Bet, bro, bet. Here's the dough. Let me have it." "All right, bro. But don't say I didn't warn you." "Wait, what?" "Huh. Must be in a hurry." With the pack successfully acquired, I skipped all the way back home. I snuck down to the basement, then packed the fattest bowl of my life and let it rip. And let me just say, that shit put me on my ass faster than anything I'd ever smoked. It was like I blasted off into some completely different dimension. My tolerance was non-existent. I broke through and then some. I could hear colors, feel smells, and somehow it got even trippier than that. I heard someone walking down the stairs. I freaked out, thinking it was my mom at first. But then, I saw none other than the one and only Snoop Dogg himself, in the flesh, chilling in my basement. It should come as no surprise, but Snoop Dogg is my lifelong idol. I always wanted to meet him, and it felt like fate that he showed up right then. "Snoop, my man, what you doing here? Smells some real good shit, man. You know I had to come check it." "Hell yeah, dude. Take a seat. I got you. Now, I know you like the blunts, but I'm not that good at rolling, so just give me a sec, alright? Take your time, G. I'm right where I want to be." Damn, he speaks in rhymes all the time. So cool. Despite being debilitatingly high, I got to work rolling Snoop a blunt, but I quickly ran into trouble. I felt so much pressure to do it perfectly, yet all of a sudden, my grinder was too sticky. All my blunt wraps were stale, and no matter what I did, I just couldn't get the damn things to stick. Snoop started to get impatient. He didn't like waiting to get high. It made him sober up, and that's not Snoop's natural state of being. He kept offering to help, but I was determined to get it right. I was almost there. I just needed to pack in a little more. And then, my last blunt wrap ripped. There was just no way I could repair it. I didn't have the skills. I looked up at Snoop, and his smile had turned. His chill, relaxed vibe was gone. His teeth were showing, These awful, sharp teeth protruding from his mouth. He was morphing right in front of my eyes into some kind of freak, a demon, I don't even know. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't the D-O-double-G anymore. It lunged for me, trying to rip out my throat. I fell back over the couch, rolling up to my feet. I made a break for the stairs with that monster right behind me. I managed to get up from the basement, ran across the hall, then all the way to the front door. As I ripped it open, I jerked my neck back to see if Snoop was still there. But then, everything went black, just instantaneous, like I'd been shot in the head. I was dead, or so I thought. The next thing I knew, I was looking straight up at a blinding white light. God? No. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and realized I was staring at the sun. I was lying on my back in the front yard. At first, I couldn't wrap my head around what was happening, only for it to hit me. I had just been laced. I was devastated. How could my plug do something like that to me? A loyal customer of so many years. But it's not like I can do anything about it. If I report it, I'd just be ratting myself out too. Ever since then, I haven't been able to smoke. I just get sent back to that place, trapped in the same hell with that thing wearing Snoop Dogg's skin like a suit.
At my school, everyone knew this one teacher, Miss P. She was super nice. Her class was really easy, and every few weeks she would bring a batch of homemade treats to share with her students. While all that was true, I never felt comfortable in the same room as her. Something was just off. I tried as hard as I could to avoid getting on her bad side. I'd seen her facade of super niceness crack a few times, and I didn't want her to snap at me the same way she did at all those other kids. Of course, it was only a matter of time before I slipped up. I was in the mood to skip a little class one day, for just a few minutes, which was long enough for everyone to be seated, and for Miss P to have begun her lesson. I barged in, too out of breath and panicked to be quiet, interrupting Miss P in the middle of her sentence. Everyone was staring at me. After I stood there for a few awkward-as-hell seconds, I excused myself, apologized for being late, then quietly went to my usual seat. Damn, why did it have to be in the front row? I sat all the way at the far end of the class, and the moment my butt touched the chair, Miss P slid off her stool, making her way to me with a whole new purpose in her step. As she stood over me, I found it impossible to look her in the eye, but she commanded obedience, and even though her voice started out calm, it didn't stay that way.
Alex, why are you late to my class? Do you not respect me?
No, ma'am.
Do you just not give a shit about what I have to say?
No, ma'am.
Look at me, Alex! Good boy. Now, are you going to swallow your pride and come to class on time tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am. That moment was humiliating. And of course, right after ripping my balls off, she put her old mask on and went back to teaching with her normal level of nauseating niceness, like nothing happened. Then, at the end of class, she asked me to stay behind while everyone else left for the day. I was sure the teeth pulling was about to resume, but actually, it was the opposite. She apologized for going too far when reprimanding me, even offering me a snack. Another one of her homemade goodies, as she called them, but I was in no position to refuse. Being as nice as I could, I asked what she made them with, to which she replied that they were vegan, gluten-free, allergen-free, and low-carb, made with coconut oil and monk fruit and a bunch of other yogi-sounding ingredients. I went away thinking that's where the off flavors and slimy textures came from in her brownies, and thought little else of it.
Just a little longer. Come on. Almost there. Done. Wow, they look perfect. Thanks again for your contribution, Mr. Donor.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Good, because I know they're going to love these.
The next day, despite having already given me an apology brownie yesterday, Miss P gave the entire class cupcakes as reparations for the terrible scene they had to witness. The embarrassment was still fresh, and the giggles I heard around the classroom didn't ease my suffering, but nobody batted an eye about the cupcakes. Everyone enjoyed home-baked goods, chock full of sugar, or whatever weird sweetener she used, even if there was a bit of an aftertaste. That would have been the end of it. Nobody I knew was any the wiser about what truly was going on with Miss P, and for that matter, her husband. It was purely fate that the criminal case being amassed against the two of them became public just a week later. The cupcakes, they were tainted, laced with Miss P's husband's bodily fluids, and we ate them. All of us, each and every one of us, ate the whole fucking thing. We were sick to our stomachs for days. It was swimming around in our stomachs, marching through our intestines, absorbing into bloodstreams and becoming part of our bodies. Perhaps forever. I can't even say that's all those monsters did. Their crimes stretched far beyond just my classroom. Multiple years, multiple students, all for their momentary pleasure, even as they rot in prison for the rest of their lives. Knowing I was probably spared the worst of it, I still have to wonder what else I unknowingly consumed from all those times I ate what Miss P gave me. A former teacher in Louisiana, who admitted to giving her students tainted cupcakes among other crimes, was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Cynthia Perkins issued an apology in court to her family, former friends, former co-workers, students, victims, and Livingston Parish before her sentencing. Perkins accepted a plea deal from prosecutors in exchange for testifying against her ex-husband, Dennis Perkins. She pleaded guilty on February 14th. Per the plea deal, Cynthia had to agree to certain facts in the case, such as assisting her husband in the crimes and lacing desserts with Dennis's bodily fluid before giving them to the students. The former teacher was sentenced to 40 years at hard labor without benefit of probation or parole. Dennis Perkins has pleaded not guilty to the charges, and his trial is set for a later date. I just don't understand where I went wrong with Anthony. All my other children turned out okay, but he went and threw it all away on drugs and gangs that never gave a damn about him in the first place. Before he went to prison, he was burning bridges left and right. His own brothers and sisters shut him out. Some of his cousins filed restraining orders. There was nobody left to be sad when he finally got caught and lost his freedom. Nobody but me. Anthony was in prison for 15 long years. They let him out 5 years early for good behavior. That gave me hope he might have changed. He was my son. This was his chance to have a fresh start. We talked on the phone for hours. Of course, Anthony asked quite a few times if he could live with me. I made it clear he would have to find his own place to stay. I did invite him over to visit for Mother's Day, though only for a visit. Anthony showed up on time, sure, but he wasn't sober. He looked just as hopped up as he ever did. Worse, actually. His eyes were more red than white, darting in every direction. His skin was pale, clammy, and covered in horrendous prison tattoos. He hadn't gotten one bit better in all this time. Disappointed, I went to slam the door in his face, but he jammed his foot in, begging for one more chance. He had brought with him some flowers and a card, thinking he could get me to let him in by slipping them through the door. But in the end, I gave up. I said I would let him visit for Mother's Day, so at the very least, I would let him remain in my house for a few hours, rather than let him bang on the door all day. Inside, it was like we didn't miss a day. We started arguing and screaming at each other almost immediately. I called him what he was, and he blamed all his mistakes on me. Nothing had changed. We went back and forth at each other's throats for the whole day until we were both exhausted. Perhaps exhausted enough to have a civil conversation. That's what I was hoping for, at least. We'd both screamed our voices out. I was in the kitchen, fighting through tears to make dinner. Anthony had been watching TV in the living room, but then he came to talk to me. Hey, Ma?
What is it, Anthony?
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it to happen like this, but I guess old habits die hard.
Ugh, you're stubborn. That you got from your father. Everything else, well, I don't know. I'm sorry too.
I think that sounds like progress. How about a hug?
You know I'm not a hugger.
Come on, it's a special occasion, ain't it? Bring it in.
All right, but don't tell anyone about this.
It was awkward for the first few seconds, but then it felt like a welcome change of pace, only for it to become awkward again when it went on for a little too long, then way too long. Anthony's hands were sliding down my back, his fingertips tracing my spine. I couldn't believe it. He was trying to get into my pants. I pushed him away as hard as I could. Then I grabbed the wooden spoon and started smacking him upside the head, sending him cowering back toward the dining table.
What the hell is wrong with you? Touching your own mother like that?
I'm sorry, Ma. I'm sorry.
Explain yourself.
It's just in prison, you know. It's been so long since I've seen a woman, let alone been close enough to touch her. I thought if I came here, you know, since Dad's been dead so long, we might be able to help each other out.
You get out of my house and never come back!
For a long while, Anthony just stood there, his hands cowering over his face, his eyes darting all around. What was he doing? I didn't notice what he was up to until it was too late, but he reached back and grabbed a garden trowel, then swung it at me. He hit me right in the temple. My eyes filled with blood, and my ears rang like a gun went off. He hit me worse than he ever had. I fought through the pain to look at him again, but when I saw his face, I knew he wasn't regretting it. He was reveling in it. Running for my life, I darted out of the kitchen to get outside and call for help. I made it as far as the door to the carport, but then he pushed me down the steps. I slammed onto the concrete, and the next instant, Anthony was on top of me. From that moment, the blows never stopped. On Mother's Day 2017, after brutally murdering his 66-year-old mother in her own home, Antonio Gladney fled the scene, only to return later that evening to speak with law enforcement, as if he were innocent. 4 days later, he finally confessed, claiming he was under the influence of, quote, something. He is currently serving a life sentence. On May 14th, 2017, 35-year-old Antonio Gladney used flowers and a Mother's Day card to convince his mother to let him in her Shannon, Mississippi home. An argument ensued between them, and Antonio attacked Molly with a garden tool, tragically ending her life. Antonio fled the scene. Law enforcement was called. Later that evening, Antonio returned to the home and spoke to them. He was arrested and charged accordingly. 4 days after the slaying, Antonio stated he was ready to man up and admitted to taking out his mother, claiming he was under the influence of something. As Antonio awaited trial, he pulled a shank on Lee County detention officers as they performed cell pod inspections, resulting in additional charges. Rather than going to trial, Antonio pleaded guilty to all the charges and was sentenced to life in prison.
Lockdown, lockdown. This is an emergency alert. Please follow lockdown procedures. Go into the nearest room or building.
I don't have a lot of friends at school. One of the few friends I have, this kid named Zach, he's a full-blown incel. Kids either bully him or go out of their way to avoid him. Unlike me, he's just too weird and creepy to fade into the background. He basically came up to me and decided we were going to be friends on the first day of freshman year, and ever since then, I've just had to tolerate him. I always joke with my friends online that I only keep him around because if I'm his friend, he might warn me not to come to school the next day in case the bullying finally makes him snap. One day, that joke became a reality. There was no warning, no signs of declining mental state. I was probably the first person at school to get any indication that Zach was up to something. It started out like any other day. I had just got off the bus, and I was waiting to get breakfast in the cafeteria, when Zach suddenly pulled me out of the line to tell me something. He was wearing the same clothes he always did, his worn-out backpack clinched all the way up to his shoulders, but something else was there too. He had a new, different bag slung under his arm. It was black and sturdy, but too small to fit a laptop or even a regular-sized notebook. I didn't have to bring it up either, because it was all he wanted to talk about.
Dude, you're gonna make me miss breakfast. What do you want?
Shh, just be quiet and take this. I need you to keep it a secret for me.
Your brand new bag? Wait, did you steal it?
No, it's mine. I just have to get rid of it for a bit.
Well, what's in it?
It's a camera, a really expensive one. So promise me you won't open it.
And you brought it to school, why?
Look, I
I was just trying to take pictures of some girls for, but then a couple of guys saw me and now they want to smash my camera and kick my ass.
Ha! Sounds like you deserve it, you creep.
Shit! I gotta run. Take this and don't look in it.
As fast as he appeared, Zach shoved the bags into his hands and bolted. I looked around for that group of angry guys chasing after him, but I didn't see anyone except the people in line who had witnessed our entire interaction. Not sure what else to do, I put the bag over my shoulder and went to the back of the line. As I waited, I started to feel how heavy it was from the strain on my shoulder. I got breakfast, then went to class, trying to ignore the extra weight I was carrying. Minute after minute, it was all I thought about, until I finally couldn't resist the urge any longer. In the middle of class, I slowly and quietly opened the zipper by a few inches, then looked inside. My worst nightmare came true right in front of my eyes. There was a gun in the bag. Immediately, my skin felt like it was on fire, and I started sweating profusely. I was afraid if I bumped the bag the wrong way, the thing inside might randomly go off. After 20 more agonizing minutes, that class period ended, and I had my chance. On the way to my next class, I walked by a bush and placed the bag behind it as discreetly as I could. I planned to tell Zach where I stashed it. A few hours later, school was almost over. Once I left, I'd be home free. But the school had other plans. Suddenly, someone got on the intercom and said the school was in lockdown. I started freaking out all over again. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't let anyone know. I had to keep quiet and follow instructions. The teacher locked the door, turned out the lights, then directed us all under our desks. We hid there, as many kids whispered and wondered if our school was next in the string of recent shootings. Meanwhile, I was silently terrified that someone had found the bag and was using the gun inside the school. As we began to hear screaming in the halls, the mood shifted. We all still hoped it was just some stupid kids playing a crude joke, but it seemed like blood was really being spilled out there. Then, after almost an hour, the lockdown was lifted. Despite how grim things seemed, nothing bad had actually happened. I left the class with everyone a few minutes later. Then I started making my way to the buses. And yeah, just before I was able to step onto the bus, 2 police officers stopped me and told me to come with them. They led me to the principal's office, where a dozen other cops and school administrators were waiting for me. Just my luck, someone had found the bag, and I was right there on camera, stashing it. I flipped on Zach instantly, not caring about him at all, just wanting him to take the blame for the shit he dragged me into. Of course, even though Zach got arrested for bringing the gun, I couldn't avoid getting taken into custody either. I'm in nearly as much trouble as him for knowing about it and not reporting it. All this time, I was friends with Zach as a safety measure, just for him to ruin my life. This school lockdown story was inspired by an incident involving 2 students who have been charged following a weapons call that forced the lockdown of 3 Port Colborne, Ontario schools. Niagara police say Port Colborne High, Still Street, and Mackay Public were placed into hold and secure protocol amid reports of a student with a firearm. Investigators say a gun wasn't located inside Port Colborne High, near Still High, and Elkin Street after a thorough search with the K-9 unit. However, one would be seized at a location outside the learning facility. There were no injuries in the incident, and students were sent home early. The 2 students are facing charges connected with possessing a firearm. One of the teens has an additional charge for careless use of a firearm. In college, I had my first 420 experience. It was mortifying. Back in high school, nobody in my friend group had messed with the stuff, but that changed rapidly in college. On 420 weekend, my best friend invited me to go with them to a hotbox party. He was under the impression I had FOMO, so when he was offered a +1 to this big party, he wanted me to come along. I couldn't say no. I didn't want to be labeled a loser. Of course, I was a nervous wreck the whole way there, and it only got worse when I laid my eyes on the address. Instead of being held in a house like I thought, the party was happening in a tiny 3rd-floor apartment with a serious lack of windows, no ventilation, no easy access to the outdoors, and only a few choke points through which to escape if an emergency were to happen. From the ground, I could hear the oppressive volume of the repetitive music and the sheer number of people inside. I tried to back out, but my friend was already headed up the stairs, and he was my only ride. so I had to follow through with this. Inside, it was more packed than I could have possibly imagined. People were crammed shoulder to shoulder, smoke billowing out of every mouth, filling the room with a thick, heavy haze. There were no normal lights, just dim, unnatural LEDs, constantly swiveling and flashing and changing colors, with lasers racing and spinning through the screen of smoke. The floor sagged beneath my feet, under the weight of hundreds of people testing it to its absolute limit. I had no idea where to go or how to get there. I just held onto my friend's shoulder as he weaved through the dense crowd. But then, I lost him. The music swelled. Everyone began cheering and shouting some random lyrics as a wave barreled through, pulling my friend out of my grasp. It was too loud to call his name. I couldn't see well enough to find him. I'd only been there a minute, and I was already waiting alone in the deep end. All around me were faces and characters I had never seen, the type of people I never wanted to be this close to. Stoners of every breed, from the harmless to the heartless, were surrounding me. They stared dull daggers into my soul, blew smoke into my eyes, sending toxic substances down my throat and coating my lungs with their concoctions. Among them, hiding in the shadows and corners, were the evilest people at the party, the thugs, dealers, and groomers. They wore dark shades and hoods, puppeteering young women under their arms, and for all intents and purposes, everyone here was under their control. I had to leave before I suffocated, before I succumbed to a coughing fit that would have me passed out and trampled at best, or violated at worst. I had to get to the bathroom, get alone, get a moment to breathe and think. I pushed and wormed and fought my way through the brain-dead people in my way, finally making it to the bathroom door right as it opened. As the last person left, I slipped inside. I turned around, grabbed the door to shut it, and locked myself in. But at the last second, the entire mob of people on the other side pushed through. I was beaten back by the door, as a hysterical crowd filled every inch of the space. They were all speaking to each other in words I couldn't comprehend, all except one phrase: hotbox. Before I knew it, the tiny room was filled with smoke so thick, I could no longer see through it. My own hands disappeared. I struggled to find my way back to the door. When had I even been pushed away from it? I couldn't get my bearings, let alone find my way. I could barely even breathe. How was I the only one suffering and suffocating? As everyone around me moaned with pleasure, it felt like my only option was to appeal to their basic humanity, if it was possible to reach it.
Please! Everyone stop! Help me! I can't breathe! Help!
Oh my god, look at him!
That guy's greening out. Somebody wake his ass up. No, I'm not asleep. I'm sick. I'm gonna die.
Is that him trying to talk? What a freak!
Get that loser out of here before he...
It was too much. I felt my heart stop, my lungs lock up. I tried to get things going again, but I couldn't. All I could feel were thousands of hands grabbing me, trying to rip my clothes and dig under my skin. I thrashed against them, unable to do anything else. Then, just as I was beginning to make sense of it, I got dumped back into the pit. I saw myself getting hurled out of the bathroom. Then I was sucked back into my body as my head hit the floor. I looked up, seeing the dumb, sneering faces looking down at me. Then I realized that in the middle of everything, I had thrown up all over myself, probably over multiple other people too. Perfect. In that condition, nobody would want to touch me, which meant they would get the hell out of my way. I stood up, parting the sea of morons, and ran out the door. I didn't bother to find my friend. He wasn't my friend anymore after bringing me to that waking nightmare. When I finally got out, I could acutely feel just how affected I was by everything I had inhaled. I was gone out of my mind, but still closer to reality than I was while trapped in that bathroom. I managed to get home safely, but I've never felt quite the same after that experience. Ever since 420, everything has felt different. When my girlfriends invited me to go to an underground 420 rave, the rave was on the outskirts of town, set up in an empty warehouse. I knew it was going to be awesome before I even walked in, and once I joined the crowd, I felt right at home. Obviously, I pre-gamed, so I had a good buzz going from the start. The music was amazing. There must have been hundreds of us. On the other hand, I knew the bathrooms were probably full of people doing God knows what, but I wasn't interested. All I wanted to do was dance, remain in the spotlight, and stay drunk and lifted. Nothing else. After a while, I needed a break to catch my breath, fetch myself a drink, and recharge so I could get back into it. I lost the friends I came with, but that didn't worry me. Honestly, the only problem I was having with the rave at that point was the line to the bar. Not having anyone to talk to while I waited made it boring as hell, and eventually landed on someone who was already looking my way. There was a guy dancing on his own at the edge of the crowd. I should have looked away sooner, but we held eye contact for a few seconds before I could pretend not to be interested. As I expected, he made his way over to me and struck up conversation.
Hey, wanna go outside and smoke a J?
Sure, screw this line.
Just like that, I followed him out of a side entrance. He didn't lead me to some dark, sketchy alley, which I appreciated. We were in the parking lot, and I quickly realized we also weren't going to be leaning against the walls of the warehouse. We were going to his car. I didn't mind this either, but when we got to his BMW, he handed me a joint, a lighter, and another question. Rather than stand outside under the fluorescent lamps or sit in his car and go nowhere, he offered to circle around while we smoked. Then he'd park in the same spot, and we'd go back in. I liked the idea of some fresh moving air and a change of scenery, so I agreed. Sitting down in the passenger seat, I sparked up, took a few hits, then handed it over to him. He didn't take it. He just waved his hand, saying he had rolled his own and didn't like to share. I shrugged, taking the joint back to my lips and hitting it again. Despite it being a little unusual, knowing I didn't have to share was kind of nice. I took my time with it, savored it, trying to really appreciate the flavor and mouthfeel, and all that stuff nerdy stoners were always talking about. Except, I looked back over to the guy a minute or two later and saw he still didn't have a joint in his hand. He had one hand on the steering wheel and the other was resting outside the window, almost like he was pretending to smoke, but he really wasn't. This time, I questioned him a bit more, and then it hit me.
What's up?
Huh?
Where's your joint, dude? You said you had your own, but I don't see one. Don't make me smoke alone.
Oh, it's chill. I'm just waiting until we get to our destination. I don't want to get a DUI or anything.
Destination? I thought you said we were going back. Wait, where are you taking me?
Relax. Just finish your joint.
No, what's your problem? I thought you were cool. Damn it, hey! Either smoke this joint with me or pull over and let me out right now! You hear me? Hello?
Shut up! Just be grateful and smoke it!
My jaw clamped shut in shock. This was really happening. I was being abducted. Before I knew it, God knows what would be happening to me. The man reached over, and I expected him to grab or grope me, but he rested his arm on the center console and took a white-knuckle grip on the lever to open it. He kept it there for a moment. I knew if I didn't keep smoking the joint he gave me and ingested whatever he laced it with, that box was going to open, and its contents would be used against me. With no other choice, I took a hit and inhaled once more. I hadn't noticed before, but there was absolutely something wrong with that smoke. Every millisecond it spent in my lungs, the more numb I became. Everything was fading away, my only chance to escape. With no warning, I reached over and struck the burning end of the joint into his eyes.
Ah! Oh, you bitch!
Let me out!
The car swerved as he jerked the wheel in pain and lost control. He slammed on the brakes to keep it from flying off the road, and before he could speed up again and grab me, I unlocked the door and jumped out. I hit the ground at high speed, tumbling and scraping the skin off my body. I didn't feel a thing. I stood up without missing a beat and started running from his car as it sped away. I flailed my arms like a crazy woman at the next car coming down the road, forcing them to stop for me. I begged them to call the police, and once they agreed, I knew I would be okay. I don't remember much of what happened for the next 24 hours, as the chemicals took effect and basically wiped my memory. When I came back, I was in the hospital, recovering from a nasty road rash. The cops took my statement, but it didn't help find the man who tried to abduct me. I never got the guy's name, never once looked at his license plate or anything else. I just knew what kind of car he drove. Nobody even saw us together. I still bear the scars of what happened that night, but they are merely reminders of the fate I narrowly avoided, a living nightmare I would never wish upon my worst enemy. Every 420, this horrible memory resurfaces.